Hey guys, so I thought it was about time that I did a wrap-up of sorts for everything that I have read since April. Last wrap-up I did was in April, but I have been reading since then, although not too much. But yeah, I still want to talk about the books I read because honestly, since April, I wasn't reading a lot, but everything I was reading, I was really loving, which is not a bad thing when you're actually enjoying what you're reading. This video is going to cover the books I read in May, June, and July. So let's just get into it because I have a lot of books that I'm really excited to talk about. So the first book that I read in May was Daisy Jones and the Six. I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is by Taylor Jenkins Reid and it is a standalone novel. And by this point, you've probably heard about it. It's very popular here on Bookstagram and BookTube. I super enjoyed it and I enjoyed it more than I thought that I would. The premise didn't seem like it was something that would super interest me. I thought I'd be interested enough, but I was really blown away with how much I actually loved the story and the characters. So this, first of all, the format I want to talk about, it's written in these like interview snippets between this band called Daisy Jones and the Six. And you learn about how this band came together and what caused this band to fall apart in the 70s. I loved the format. I honestly flew through this. I think I read it in like 1 or 2 days. It was just a really quick read, but it was a read that I couldn't put down. Every time I was reading it, I was so immersed in the story, and I didn't think I would get as immersed in the story because it's honestly just like snippets from interviews all throughout this whole book. So I didn't think I would get into it as much as I did, but I so did. So highly would encourage you to read that if you're interested in like a rock and roll band look inside. I mean, there's lots of drama, there's romance, it's really good. Also, I just have to mention that it really reminded me of the Civil Wars. So pretty much this whole book, when I was reading it, I was listening to the Civil Wars in the background because in my head, that's what they sounded like. So that was a really fun reading experience, and I would encourage you to listen to the Civil Wars if you haven't yet, especially while reading this book because it just fits perfectly. I next read another really good book in May, and that was Marriage for One. This book I gave 4 stars. This is a romance set in New York City or Chicago. I think it's New York City, but I sometimes get like the big cities mixed up. So anyways, we'll just go with New York City. I love the characters in this book. First of all, our main female character, she's starting up this like coffee shop, bake shop, and I love that. Like, I loved reading about how she would bake. Obviously, anything that has that in it is something that's going to interest me. This is a marriage of convenience novel, if you couldn't kind of tell from the title. So this woman, she was recently engaged to someone. It fell apart and she has to get married. There's this whole thing with this inheritance from her uncle who passed away and like his kids, but she does end up getting married to the lawyer who's kind of like handling the affairs for them. She gets this coffee shop started. She is just this bubbly, happy person, and she slowly like chips away at him, and it's just so, it's adorable. Like, it's so cute. Like, you're just gonna be reading this and be thinking, this is so cute, like so much of the book. So I really enjoyed it. The only reason I did dock it 1 star was there's this thing that happens in this book, and I don't want to give it away, but there's a lot of build up to it, and like I saw it coming very early on. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna turn into this, which is sounding very vague, and I realized I do that a lot. I just like wasn't interested in that plot line, so, and that like plot device that was used, so that was really my only drawback to the story. The rest of the book I really enjoyed. I loved the romance and the adorableness and just the characters and like how they like become friends. Yes, it was good, enjoyed it. Next, I read in June, I read 1 book in the month of June, which is just sad, but I was reading another book, I just didn't finish it. So I finished 1 book in June, and that was the only book I have in person. That's Crazy Rich Asians. I got this at a used bookstore, and I didn't think I was going to like it as much as I did. Another shock. Like, all of these books have been shocks, either in that I love them so much or they were a surprise, but I read this over like 1 day, 1 or 2 days. And that was saying a lot considering I hadn't really done much reading in the past few months. So this is about this girl who is dating her boyfriend. They're in love, they're very serious. They live in New York City, and he is actually a very rich, like almost part of a royalty family in Singapore, and he's a part of his best friend's wedding in Singapore, and so he invites his girlfriend along to go visit his family, travel throughout China, see where he grew up, things like that. And she has no idea that he is like the elite of the elite, and she gets thrown into this insanely rich and privileged society that is honestly mind-boggling to read about. I think that's why I liked it so much. It was just so crazy to think that people like live lives like this. I know this is fiction, it's not 100% based on reality, but I'm pretty sure that there are people who are like this, who have this kind of money and wealth, and it's just crazy to think about. I loved it. So yeah, it was really, really fun. I want to watch the movie now really badly. I actually was planning on watching it as soon as I finished the book, and then it was no longer on Netflix, so I need to find a way to rent it because I still really want to be watching that, but I think it'll be really cool to see it all come to life and like just see everything. Anyways, lots of drama, lots of fun, just a blast. And I did start the sequel. I have not finished it yet, but I still want to continue with the series because it was really, really good. So 4.5 stars for this one. In the month of July, I finally finished The Clockmaker's Daughter. This is Kate Morden's most recent novel that she's released, and I read this mostly in June and then just ended up finishing it in July. And overall, I give this like a 4-star rating. It was really good. Like, I like all of Kate Morden's books. Every time she writes, I just feel like so cozy and so just, I can't even describe it, but she transports me with her words and the way that she writes a setting and characters, and she really has an incredible way of writing. So I love reading her books. This one, it did take me a long time to read, but I cannot exactly say if that was the book's fault or my fault because I was in such a weird reading funk. But despite that, despite it taking me over a month to read, I still really enjoyed it, which was nice because sometimes when it takes me a long time to read a book, I either just straight up give up on it or like I've lost interest by the end, but that didn't happen with this book. So this is a historical fiction, as all of her books are. It's hard to give this one a synopsis because there are so many different plot lines and characters and time frames. Like, this book spans, one part of the book is like in the 1800s and then it's to present day, so there's tons of stories sprinkled throughout. It basically revolves around this really amazing, magical seeming cottage that's just set on a river in this rural English town, and just what happens in this cottage, the people that have come through and lived there. There was a dramatic event in the 1800s with this cottage that gives it kind of a bleak backstory, and I don't even know how to describe this book. It's really hard, but it's very good. There were some reviews I had read that honestly kind of complained about it being too all over the place and too many plot lines and characters, and it was hard to keep up, but I didn't find it hard to keep up with at all. I thought it was, very clear. Yes, at some points you didn't know why you were reading a certain character's perspective, but it did all tie in together, and I knew that it would. So I actually liked that. It didn't pull away from the story for me at all. So I would still recommend this if you like historical fiction, especially like a mysterious element and something super cozy. Would recommend. Next, I read for the booktubeathon. I read Order of the Phoenix, which was a reread. It was fantastic. It's the 5th book in the Harry Potter series, and I'm not going to say much more because it is the 5th book, although I feel like pretty much everyone now at least knows the plot line of Harry Potter. If you haven't read the books, you've probably watched the movies, but I will keep from spoiling anything here. But Harry Potter and his BFFs are, up to their usual shenanigans at Hogwarts, and it's a lot darker of a book compared to the other ones, but it's a really good change from like the first half of the series to the second half, so I really enjoy the 5th book. It's definitely not my favorite, but I still enjoyed it, and honestly, rereading it, it never gets old. Like, that's just the thing that so shocks me when I read Harry Potter. It's like still just as good. It's just, I love it. So good. So anyway, I read that. Don't have to talk about that anymore because y'all know I love Harry Potter anyway. Next, I read The Young Honeymooners by Christina Lauren, and this was my first Christina Lauren book, so I was really happy to finally read it, especially because I just really love the cover of this one, first of all. And I had read from other reviews, it wasn't super steamy, which I was very grateful for because I'm not a big fan of those types of romances, so this was just perfect. This girl has a twin sister, and she gets married to this guy who you kind of start to hate. But anyways, this guy has a brother, and everyone at this wedding gets horribly sick from the seafood, except for her, the sister, and the brother. And these people actually hate each other, but they are the only ones who can go on the couple's honeymoon because the couple is severely ill, as well as everyone else who was at the wedding. So they go on this honeymoon together to Hawaii, and it's beautiful, but they hate each other, and they're stuck like pretending to be married on a honeymoon. So it's just full of fun, as you can imagine, just by the sound of that, and I really liked it. So I liked that it wasn't all taking place in the honeymoon location. I didn't know if it was going to be the whole time like in Hawaii, but it actually did switch to like they came home and you see their lives there. So I really like that too, because it felt more realistic, even though it's highly unrealistic. I did have to suspend reality reading this book quite a bit, but I still enjoyed it once I was able to do that. So I'll for sure be reading more of Christina Lauren in the future. So let me know some of your favorites by those authors. That wraps up those 3 months of reading for me. I'm gonna try to do more frequent posts and keep up with my wrap-ups as the months go by. I think I'm gonna get back into the rhythm of it here. So I just wanted to share all of those books. If you've read any of them, of course, let me know. And if you have any more recommendations based on some of the books I've mentioned here, I'd love to hear that too, because honestly, there wasn't a book in the past 3 months that I read that I didn't love or like really like. So that's saying something. Anyway, thank you so much for watching and happy reading.